Fight fans. This is Kurt Deville with Counterpunch Boxing News. And I'm up early, man. I woke up and, I got to thinking about some stuff. I said, well, you know what? I did a short on the face-off. But then I'm thinking, okay, well, when was the face-off? The face-off was after the, it was after the live stream. The media conference. So the media conference, I'm like, okay, well, the media conference, to my recollection, was supposed to be at 1:25 p.m. today, Central Standard Time, but obviously not. So, I don't know. It's been all jacked up. But I just watched on Netflix or Netflix YouTube channel, whatever, the final press conference of this fight. Happened about 6 hours ago in Las Vegas, and let's talk about it. Bill knows boxing. What's up, brother? Counterpunch to you. Mama Lou in the building. Counterpunch. Ronnie Frauds. Good morning, Ronnie. What's up, brother? Counterpunch to you. When you guys come in, hit the like button. Good social media breakdown. A lot of people there, bro. I mean, a lot of people showed up. Guys, here's some. What's up, brother? What's up? Counterpunch to you. Bud about to get that KO on Canelo. Bars. I don't see that, man. I don't see it. Now, that would be extraordinary. That would be totally, absolutely 100% to the max. That would be extreme to me. That'll be something that I don't see coming. That will be totally unexpected. If Crawford knocks out Canelo, bro, that would just be past me. I would be satisfied. I mean, because at that point, I mean, I was about to say there's no excuses, but there's no doubt on who won or not when you do have a knockout, unless it was like some kind of early stoppage or something like that, and it was stopped by the ref or a cut. That could always be the case. But no, man, if Crawford stops Canelo, you're going to hear all types of stuff. If something like that happened on that end concerning Canelo being stopped, which he never been down, ever been down to the canvas before. I mean, that's something that you can brag about all by itself. When you got a guy that's never been dropped, he's never been dropped or knocked down. I remember Miguel Cotto. I remember Danny Jacobs. I remember Gennady Golovkin. Those three people rocked Canelo. And that big, square-jawed, Superman-chinned looking ass dude was still able to take that shot. I don't know if you guys remember Oleg Moskayev. He was a heavyweight boxer. He had that same kind of chin. And then everybody talked about his chin was so chiseled and it looked so, until he eventually got knocked out. But that's a heavyweight. So, you can expect that. You should expect a heavyweight to eventually get chinned, Joe Joyce. So that happens. TKO, but no KO. TKO, yeah. But again, if it's a TKO, Bill, yeah, that's definitely one of those situations. Crawford on points. In a perfect world, that's how it should go. If Crawford was going to win, it would be just because he's just a better boxer. If Canelo can't hit him or rock him to his core or do something impactful to make him stop what he is intended to do, that's understandable. But on points, really, people, on points, that really scares the shit out of me. I mean, it really does. Crawford beating Canelo on points. As much respect Canelo has, as much influence that Canelo has, as much juice as Canelo has, as many stripes as Canelo has, that scares me. It does. It scares me. Canelo losing on points to Crawford, for me, is I doubt it. In a perfect world, I wouldn't. Because, I mean, I've seen performances against fighters that thought boxing Canelo is enough. Now, things have changed in Canelo's career, which we're going to talk about in this live stream, which I do feel we need to discuss, like his management, like his promotional company. The only thing that stayed the same with Canelo, which you have to respect, is his training, his corner. The head trainers. You used to have Chepo. I don't know what happened to Chepo, but he was the father of Eddie. Now it's Eddie. That's all you see is Eddie Reynoso. You don't see Chepo Reynoso, which was, it used to be Chepo and Eddie Reynoso, and they used to guide Canelo's career since he was a teenager. But nowadays you have just Eddie, but that has stayed the same. It has stayed consistent. So you have to respect Canelo for that, because Canelo has two official losses on his record: Floyd Mayweather and Dimitri Bivol. And both times, a lot of other fighters, they use those losses as an opportunity or an excuse, for their loss. And they use that as an opportunity to change, So, and to me, when that happens, when a fighter loses a fight and they've been with a trainer for a while, and all of a sudden, because of that loss, they decide, oh, you know what? I need a change. I need a mental redo. I need something that's going to boost my mental focus and all that. So they get rid of that guy that they've been with for the longest. Oscar De La Hoya did it. Miguel Cotto did it. Gennady Golovkin did it. A lot of people did it. We got a super chat. Guys, here's some fantasy fight. Prime Tua versus Prime Parker. Ooh, that's a very good fight. Very good fight. You guys give a like to Guys Hearsome for that super chat, because that was a very great question. Because Parker, you know what? A Prime Parker, I think, guys, I think you need to answer this question for me. It depends on when do you think Parker was in his prime? I know David Tua in his prime was probably about 1997, 98, because he had no hiccups. He was the classic vintage Tyson, the ball-headed Tyson-looking Tua, right? He rocked the ball head. He could throw punches in bunches. He liked to work the body. He had that left hook, and he had stamina as well. The guy with the bird nest flat top like Kid and Play, that ain't the dude that was vintage to me. Parker, are we talking about the small, slender, young Parker that could move and outbox guys like Andy Ruiz? Or are we talking about the bigger, stockier Parker right now that's age 33, that's fighting right now? So it depends. And I like the younger, smaller Parker outboxing the bigger Tua. But if there were the prime Tua to me, I think would eventually caught Parker. But then, because Parker did take shots from Andy Ruiz, which I felt that he didn't have to take. However, Andy Ruiz, in my opinion, was a lot faster than David Tua was. That's what made and makes Andy Ruiz Andy Ruiz. Okay, so there you go. Bud is not 45 years old. Okay. Caesarism is order. Canelo was 15 years old when he lost to Floyd. That's a lie. He was 22 years old. If you think 22 years old is 15 years old, why don't you let a 22-year-old date a 15-year-old and see how far that goes? Somebody's ass is going to jail. Mm-hmm. Counterpunch. Ronnie didn't know Bud was 35. Bud is 38. He's not 35. He's 38. Canelo's 35. I see Canelo versus Beterbiev happening in the future. Have taken losses. I wouldn't mind to see it, but 168 or 175. No. Artur Beterbiev will not fight Canelo at 175. He's already said that, which I can respect. Just like I can respect Triple G not fighting Canelo at 157 or 155. Because that was once a thing, and everybody looked at Canelo as a prima donna, and they should have. Canelo got a lot of criticism in 2016. Why? Because he felt that he was a big enough star to fight Gennady Golovkin at a catchweight. while Gennady Golovkin was the unified middleweight champion. So, a lot of people gave him that type of criticism, but much deserved, because he needs to fight at 160, because he contradicted himself fighting Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. at 164.5 right before he fought Golovkin for the first time in 2017. So there you go. Crawford is in his mid 40s. Okay. Raw Dog, Parker, better IQ. Yeah, definitely. Parker has a better IQ than David Tua, definitely. David Tua is just known. David Tua would probably be a better fight stylistically for someone like Derek Chisora. Crawford's best win is a post-accident Spence. I see you're a Crawford fan. That's what's up. No, he isn't in his 40s. Trolls. Spence barely beat Porter, and Crawford best win. Yeah, this is definitely a troll, because Porter was stopped for the first time in his career against Terrence Crawford. But you won't say that, but you'll say some silly shit like that. Yeah, nah. Crawford has said 154 is his limit, so 168 maybe just be too much. It may be. I will say this about Crawford, and I will say this about Canelo, contradicting things. First, Crawford first said that he thought that 168 was too big. Then he changed his mind. Then Canelo did say that fighting Crawford, he'll get no credit, but obviously he changed his mind. You see what I'm saying? So, at some point, these guys have said contradicting things, but I do think and feel that any person, especially based on the money, based on the ching, why do you think that was all of a sudden now a reasonable decision to fight each other? Because of the money. Bud was born the 28th of this month, 1987. Well, if he does the math, he'll know what that means, but whatever. Jake Paul would KO Crawford. Peace, Kurt. Canelo will be forced to increase his output in this one. I don't know. I mean, he would if he's smart. If Canelo's smart, he would. Because one thing that I hope Canelo learned in the Bivol fight is that he needed to be more active. And he's shown us that he could do that when he was getting outboxed, because you remember when he fought Lara was just giving him a 1-2 and a 1-2-3 and a step around and a walk around the block, a reset, and the repeat process. And he had to figure out a way to land, because the big shots that he was accustomed of landing wasn't landing on Lara, because Lara wasn't standing in the pocket. Lara was sitting out, sharp shooting him from the outside, boxing him from the outside. And Canelo figured out, probably from round 6 on, I have to throw punches. I have to throw bombs. I have to get my punch output up. And that's what he did against Lara. And if anybody argued anything in favor of Canelo, it would be he started going to the body, because those shots upstairs, which recorded he only landed 2 punches in the head per round. The man landed 24 headshots in 12 rounds. So he knew, I have to land somewhere on this guy that's outboxing me. So he has to, and I think this will happen in a lot of these fights with Canelo. If Canelo feels that he's getting outboxed, if he goes in there and finds out, I don't really have an IQ that's comparable to Crawford, he's going to start going to that body. He's going to start working those shoulders. He's going to start hitting them forearms. He's going to start going to that chest and trying to get to that body of Crawford, because he knows that, hey, I have to do something, or I'll end up like I was with Bivol. And Bivol gave Canelo all he could handle as far as punches. He just couldn't outland Bivol, because Bivol was just back, 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 back. And he was fighting like Pacquiao fought Margarito. You remember when Pacquiao fought Margarito, it was the volume. Sure, he hurt him in the 11th round against Margachito or Margarito, whichever you want to call him. He will always be known as a drug cheat, unfortunately, with the bad eye, which he got because it was poetic justice, you know? And it just goes to show you about people like that, you know. Some people had it coming. But, you know, Bivol pulled a Pac-Man on Canelo. That's how he lost. It was the punch output. So, you know, but Crawford, you know, Crawford's more of a timed guy. So he, you know, I'm really interested to see what he does with Canelo and vice versa. You know, peace, Kurt. Canelo will be forced to incur. All right, got that one. Ivan Curry. Canelo retains his titles and leaves the ring victorious. Crawford heads straight into retirement. End of story. Okay. Finito, Timu Kash Patel. Okay. I've got a hunch on a draw and still. Yeah, I think it will be a draw. I think the safest outcome we'll have for two guys in their respected positions. I think Crawford will beat Canelo, and it will be named a draw. I look at this fight like Pernell Whitaker fighting Julio Cesar Chavez. Julio Cesar Chavez was the equivalent 30 years ago of what Canelo is right now. Canelo is that renowned legend, living, walking, breathing, and still fighting. Okay, just like Julio Cesar Chavez was, and I think it was in 96 or 95 when he fought Pernell Whitaker. And Pernell Whitaker, I mean, it was a decent fight, but Pernell Whitaker beat Julio Cesar Chavez. You know, and they talked about how big of a robbery it was. I remember the Ring magazine was saying, you know, the biggest robbery as of yet. And, you know, Whitaker was just prime Whitaker. And you wasn't stopping that defense. And Whitaker was slick enough to stay in the pocket of someone that throw that many punches like Julio Cesar Chavez. Julio Cesar Chavez was dynamic. He was a punching, body-throwing guru. He was a guy that overwhelmed you with body shots. He was a guy that goes to the body, and he knew how to go to the body, and he did it rapidly and consistently. And all this time, what I didn't know at that time, what Julio Cesar Chavez, doing what he did, he never fought Trinidad, but he fought everyone else, right? I think Oscar De La Hoya caught him a little late in his career. But Julio Cesar Chavez was a guy that did all that, all the success that he had. He was like 89-0 with that one draw, right? Because, you know, he beat Mildred Taylor, but he had a draw against Pernell Whitaker. All that he did, this man was high. This man did that under the influence of alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, and all those other things. Now, imagine if Julio Cesar Chavez was a clean, straight up, narrow guy that went to sleep on time, and you know what I mean, that practiced rest and self-preservation. Imagine if Julio Cesar Chavez wasn't a drunk. Imagine if he didn't have a substance abuse problem or a cocaine user or abuser, whichever one you want to use. Imagine if he was that dude that took care of his body like Floyd did, like Canelo, like Bernard Hopkins did, like Mayweather does. All those guys did. Imagine if he was that dude. What kind of fighter he would have been. Right? So he did all those things. He did all those things under the influence. It's crazy. Amazing. Kurt in boxing, how accomplished, get overhyped. Bud is a 2-time division undisputed, and Canelo is a 5-time division champion. How do they stack? Understand Canelo had opportunities that I feel Crawford didn't have. I think the opportunities came with the access to fights that Crawford didn't have. Crawford didn't have the opportunity to fight a lot of those PBC guys. When he left 140, he ran to 147. Crawford ran into a world of scrutiny and political BS. You know, the politics that rested with Terrence Crawford, it was just ridiculous. It was redonkulous. Okay? Because Crawford went from 140, became an undisputed junior welterweight champion. He went to 147. He took out the problem, Jeff Horn. A lot of people don't even look at that, but, you know, Jeff Horn, decision Pacquiao. People loved Pacquiao so much that it was like, nah, it was, you know, Pacquiao won. Which I do think Pacquiao did enough to win against Jeff Horn. But he didn't stop him. He didn't do what Terrence Crawford did. Terrence Crawford went out there. He came in there like the cleaners. He was that top rank cleanup guy. He was on the top rank cleanup crew because he did something that Pacquiao didn't do. Pacquiao should have done. Jeff Horn, I feel, was a weight bully. I think he was a lot bigger than he was for that weight class. That's why he went to 154 and got knocked out right after he got stopped by Terrence Crawford, you know. So, but still, it was a hard fight for Pac-Man, you know. And I look at Crawford doing that. He got no respect, right? He got no respect for Jeff Horn. He got no respect for Kell Brook. He got no respect for who else did he beat? Mean Machine. And these are all guys. Amir Khan quit for the first time in his career. Porter got stopped for the first time in his career. He never got credit for any of those things. Meanwhile, you had Errol Spence. Errol Spence was the guy that did have the access to the fights, that was supposed to be fighting Canelo Alvarez tomorrow. You guys do know that, right? Errol Spence is supposed to be fighting Canelo Alvarez tomorrow. I'm going to say that one more time. Errol Spence is supposed to be fighting Canelo Alvarez tomorrow, not Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford was that guy that nobody believed in, that wasn't really liked. Nobody liked Crawford. A lot of people, I liked Crawford because I knew what he could do. But people didn't like Crawford for other reasons besides his fighting ability. Believe it or not, I was on a black podcast. And I heard, and I'm not going to even come up with any names because I'm not going to blast anybody because I'm not enemies with them. But I heard that Terrence Crawford, and this was the craziest thing I ever heard. Get a load of this. I heard Terrence Crawford was not marketable because he was dark-skinned. Just let that sit in for a minute. That's what was said on the podcast. He's not marketable because he's dark-skinned. Terrence Crawford is not marketable because he's dark-skinned. And I almost hit the roof. I said, bro, that has nothing to do with fighting ability. That's nothing to do with skill at all. And you're trying to say now, oh, well, he doesn't get the abilities or get the chances because he has dark skin. Bro, that rocked me. But then I start thinking, like, how many other people think this shit? How many other people think that Terrence Crawford was not likable because he was dark skinned? And it was a scary narrative to start spreading. You don't want to start spreading shit like that. But is it true? So it's crazy. So Ronnie Frauds, to come back with that question, the guy that had access to the opportunities was Errol Spence, not Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford was the guy that defied all odds, that didn't want to keep fighting welterweight after welterweight after welterweight and not get credit for it because he was still a champion. It was so disrespectful for Terrence Crawford that Terrence Crawford wasn't even recognized on the WBO end. He was the WBO welterweight champion of the world. They didn't even have him as listed on the PBC champions as list of opponents for Errol Spence once upon a time. Facts. They had Manny Pacquiao, because remember Manny Pacquiao was a WBA regular, so they put his ass on the end. So it was bad. They wanted the idea of, and look, this is 2 years before, 2 years before Errol Spence fought Terrence Crawford. Errol Spence, remember, was supposed to fight Manny Pacquiao. So they were trying to hype up that fight. They didn't even want Terrence Crawford to fight Errol Spence. However, I will say this. Because they didn't want that, I think that's what kept Crawford hungry. You know what I mean? I like the hard road, like John Fury says, the hard road. I like the idea of the hard road because I think it keeps Terrence Crawford sharp and it keeps him hungry. You know what I mean? Like, you ever heard the saying that, hey, if I'm a poor person, I won't let myself get beat by anybody that lives in comfort like yourself. You know what I mean? Terrence Crawford has been living that deprived access for a long time, and I think that's what keeps him sharp on the edge where it needs to be. You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about the comparison between him and Canelo, Canelo's been spoiled for years. Crawford ain't. Hopefully we see that in the performance. We'll see what he is willing to do with Canelo, and we'll see what Canelo's willing to do with Crawford. It's lined up to be a very good fight because Terrence Crawford is a guy that, once again, because, I mean, they didn't want to give him the Canelo fight. He fought hard for that fight. They wanted him to fight everybody else. They wanted him to stay at 154, which would have been reasonable, but at the same time, Crawford didn't want that. Crawford was like, dude, I'm tired of getting these bullshit fights, fighting these people that nobody never gives me credit for. The first time that I don't knock someone out, they call me overrated. You know what I mean? You know how many asses that Terrence Crawford stopped at welterweight? All of them. Except for Amir Khan, because he quit. So there's still a TKO. All of them. Crawford stopped everyone. So no, still didn't get any credit. So yeah, keep him like that. Keep talking shit about Crawford, because I think as long as you talk about Crawford, he's going to expect that the minute that he's accepted, he may go soft. He may get, soft. Shout out my name. It's FIPA Lepstein. Okay. Anyone who thinks this is a 50-50 fight has racial bias. Okay. Maybe you have racial bias. You ever thought about that? Skrilla 50 in the building. What's up, brother? Counterpunch to you. Ronnie states, is this what boxing wants, like a fight that sells a black versus a Mexican? Well, if you ask guys like Floyd, Money Mayweather, yeah. He said that years ago. He said, well, the way you make the most money and the most fights and the most build up and the most success in selling a fight is you get a black fighter and a brown fighter because they're the premier fighters. And, nothing is better than when you match them up against each other. That's what Floyd said, not what Kurt said, but what Floyd Mayweather said. Now, the question you got to ask yourself, do you feel, in your opinion, and you guys' opinions, is that true? Is that a true statement? Canelo has fought 140 before, so he knows what's possible. Can't become a 2-division undisputed from fighting no one. True. Blood Rush Entertainment. In heavyweight, I noticed, why is the WBC take longer to enforce a mandatory interim champion fight compared to the WBO, for example, last mandatory 2022. Blood Rush Entertainment, because they're crooks. Plain and simple. They're crooks. They are crooks. End of story. They're crooks. They're corrupted. They are the reason why boxing is still wearing the jacket, and the back of it says corruption on the back. Right along the shoulder blades of anybody wearing a WBC jacket, you should see corruption. Starting with a C, ending with an N. Corruption. That's why. Corruption. It's easy. Boxing has always been about the purse. That's why great fights don't happen. Kurt, I watched the Canelo Floyd fight. How can you explain one judge scoring that fight a draw? Corruption! Ronnie, it's corruption, for Christ's sake. I just said it. CJ Ross scored that shit. That's all I seen it. Corruption. Laura was boxing Canelo while on skates. Yeah, he just did what he needed. But look again. I think it's the arrogance. I don't even call it confidence, because by this time, these Cuban fighters, especially Laura should have known better. You can't expect to win a decision against Canelo doing a decent job. You have to beat Canelo doing a job like Bivol did. You seen Triple G box and stick that jab in Canelo's face all day, and Canelo kind of weaned away. In fact, he fought like Lara fought him and got a draw. Lara, of all people, should have known since the Paul Williams fight that there would be no reason, none at all, that he should win a decision against Canelo Alvarez without putting his best foot forward. He decided, hey, let me use this shit but try to box him like Oscar did Felix Trinidad, and that didn't work for Oscar De La Hoya. So what makes you think that your Cuban, Afro-Cuban, no hablo Ingles ass was going to win a decision against Canelo the Cash King? You was not going to win that. He should have learned that against Paul the Punisher. But he didn't, I guess. Wasn't a drug cheat. He put plaster in gloves. Who? Who are we talking about? I think Canelo is going to win, but it's going to be an awesome fight to watch. They got to put on more super fights. How many super fights are we going to get? How many super fights can happen? That's the question you ask yourself. How many super fights do you guys, just name me some super fights that you guys think that should happen in boxing right now? Does 168 limit Crawford's volume? I have no idea. And you know, the weird thing about this fight is maybe Crawford don't know. Maybe Bomac. Nobody knows except Crawford. Crawford is not going to know how he's going to, unless, you know what I mean? I think he has an idea, because obviously he's sparred. He's sparred, you know, the guys that he needed to spar. And in news on the story, Crawford has a shoulder injury. It was all bullshit. That's fake. That's false. Crawford does not have a shoulder injury. Now, Bill knows boxing. This is what I don't want to hear, though. I don't want that shit used as an excuse if he loses the decision and it's flat and he gives assortments or whatever. And then and then I don't want to hear that shoulder shit now. No. Chavez wrecked Roger Mayweather. Yeah, he did. You heard Tank Davis versus Paul, fool. Rick James said cocaine is a hell of a drug. Skrilla 50, that's true. Morning, brother Kurt. IV Court this morning. Bud Crawford gonna beat Canelo. Crawford has more dog in him and want to prove himself and to everyone else. Tony Lyons, it will be something amazing to see. That's what, hey, man, half of my people are from Missouri. You got to show me. But both people got to show me. What I don't want to see, I don't want to see a Canelo versus, what's his name? Skull. I don't want to see a fight like that. And Canelo ends up throwing 50 punches and winning a fight. I don't want to see a boring fight, because that was a very boring fight. But it wasn't because Canelo just didn't want to engage like that with a guy like William Skull. And I know this is unpopular. I know it is, because everybody loves Turkey al-Sheikh as well as I do. I don't rule out what William Skull said. And people they sweep that shit under the rug. I don't know why they do, but they do. Do you guys remember what William Skull said? William Skull said that Turkey al-Sheikh came in his dressing room and told him, we have other fights for Canelo, so take it easy on him. Damn if it's real or popular or unpopular. Is it true? Because if it's true, then that means Turkey Al Sheikh didn't want William Skull to fight Canelo hard. He was just a guy that showed up and was placed there to take an L and to get paid. And if that was his objective, he did his job. Now, he might have got blackballed from other fights. You'll probably never hear from William Skull again. But I don't think that that was the point, because to be real with you, I never fucking heard of William Skull. And he's Cuban. You know what I'm saying? I'm Cuban. So I know Cuban fighters. I hear about the new ones. I hear about the defects, the ones that defect from Cuba. I know about those cats. Never heard of him. So there you go. Pac-Man wiped out my boy Ricky Hatton. Brutal KO. He did. He took Ricky Hatton out, and he knocked Ricky Hatton out so bad that Ricky Hatton was depressed for about 3 years. That man was hurt. He was mental, like he gave this man mental illness with that knockout. He gave him mental illness. Because Ricky Hatton, you know, he's the hit man. He's accustomed to taking out guys that beat Floyd. Jose Luis Castillo, in a lot of people's eyes, beat Floyd Mayweather, especially the first fight. And Ricky Hatton put this man in a body punching coma. He took Castillo's ass out, but then got beat by, you know, then got knocked out by Manny Pacquiao. You know, but Ricky, you understand this. If we go back in the hands of time and we look at the best welterweights at the time, or junior welterweights, and we go back to that era of fighters, Ricky Hatton was at least number 3, right? He was number 3. Or at times he was number 2, because remember when Floyd knocked him out, he retired. And then he called himself coming back, getting Mayweather Sr.'s trainer, Mayweather Sr. as his trainer, and got knocked out by Manny Pacquiao. So he got knocked out by Manny Pacquiao. And, you know, but still, you got knocked out by the best fighters of a generation. So, you know what I mean? And he still had problems with that. I think maybe, you know, the highlight reels and, you know, social media was kicking in at the time. If you really remember that was in 2008, which, to be fair, it wasn't nowhere near it was now. But, you know, the tabloids, the newspapers, the magazines, the radio stations, you know, they talked about that shit for a long time. Ricky Hatton suffered a second or third round knockout, devastating KO to that type. So it was crazy. Pac-Man wiped, yeah. So Canelo has a chin, but he does not have the much of a gas tank, especially if he takes too many body shots. All I'll say is we'll see. You know? Have you seen other channels making vids on Crawford working for or with Snack? I don't really understand the Snack thing. They just looking to pull excuse. Yeah, I don't understand. Well, I do understand it. You know, understand boxing, especially with certain channels. I understand that boxing has a popularity requirement. See, if you're a content creator and you know that Canelo Alvarez is the cash cow, and you know your channel thrives off popularity and views, what happens is you may have another guy which may not do as many views because he's not the popular fighter. Some of the best fighters now are not the most popular fighters. Canelo, Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk, who else? Maybe Tank Davis. Those guys are probably pretty much, you know, in a ideal popularity view, love, like they're the algorithms for those fighters in certain channels. They make a certain amount of money because they're accustomed to a certain amount of views. what happens is, like Canelo, if you're a bigger channel, or your channel kind of, if you're my channel or bigger, and you know that your audience loves Canelo Alvarez, it's up to you to feed your audience. You see what I'm saying? So when you see fight like channels, and I know channels for a fact, like, bro, you're dick riding. Stop it. You know what I mean? What did Crawford? Here's the thing. What did Crawford do to anybody to deserve what he's getting from other channels talking shit like that? Think about it. Where does and why does people talk, and why was the ridicule on Crawford about Snack? Where did that come from? Why wasn't it talked about before? Think about it. Why wasn't Snack an issue when he was fighting Errol Spence? Hell, we thought more of Errol Spence with the big titty nipples and all that. We thought he was more on steroids than anybody else. Kurt, did you see Canelo in the press conference? Do you think he still looks skinnier? I mean, Canelo's compact, but Canelo's an athlete, but he's also a guy that's filthy rich. Guys like Cristiano Ronaldo, guys like that, they're gonna stay a certain because they have a routine. Blank Davis is a disappointment. Super fights for me would be Nakatani versus Inui. Okay, Zerto versus Jai. And here's the thing: Jai Apataya, Dimitri Bivol, Terrence Crawford. You know what they all have in common? They're all very good fighters, probably pound for pound fighters, but they're not popular, right? So if you got somebody that knows they strive off of Canelo, and they know their audience are Canelo fans, and you know what I mean, you may have 100,000 subscribers, but if you know half of those or more are Canelo fans, you're not gonna talk. You can't be a channel like that. That's fair. You can't be honestly fair with that type of audience. Your audience is going to build to attract based on what type of videos you put out. That's why, like, YouTube now is in a transition, because now things are changing. Stars are changing. Interests are changing. People are no longer interested in certain things. That's why Canelo Alvarez, to some people, Terrence Crawford is a threat. He's a threat. This channel was a Canelo channel. Dude even had that Victor Conte on, and Victor was saying a bunch of stuff, but the YouTuber was making it sound bad. But bitch in his blood sports used to talk shit about Crawford until Crawford ran up on him. And you see, here's the thing though, like Blue Blood Sports TV, I have nothing against Blue Blood, but I do understand there was a shift. I don't know if it was because of the run-in or not. Maybe that had a lot to do with it. But Blue Blood, what saved his channel, listen to me, what saved Blue's channel was his switch. See, if he wouldn't have switched, because a lot of people turned on Blue Blood. When he turned against Errol Spence, when he started saying, well, Rich, he didn't really turn on him. He was just like, no, Terrence Crawford, it's not his fault that fight's not happening. It was Al Heyman. It was Al Heyman's fault. Al Heyman didn't want certain fights to happen. Al Heyman did not want Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. He did not want fights like that. He did not want Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford from some other entity. He didn't want anyone else coming in to help him do a fucking thing. He wanted to control everything. He took care of the fighters that he took care of. If it was any other opposing fighter that could have stopped that money rolling in because by a loss, he was going to stop that. That's what Al did. That's why he didn't want Terrence Crawford, because he was like, I can't control Terrence because Terrence Crawford is not my fighter. So I can't control him. So if he comes in and whoops my fighter's ass that makes all this money, all these $1 million fight purses per fight, I could lose recognition and at the same time lose my star. And that's exactly what happened. Terrence Crawford came in and wrecked Errol Spence. Errol Spence was a cash cow. Imagine if Errol would have beat Crawford. He would have been, this would have probably been a bigger fight, to be real. Just to be real with you. If Errol Spence would have beat Terrence Crawford, imagine Errol Spence versus Canelo. Yeah, Canelo would be a favorite, but it would still be a huge fight. It wouldn't be on Netflix. It would probably be on Amazon Prime, of course, but it would be huge. Think about it. It would be huge. A guy surviving a car wreck, then kicking ass, beating Danny Garcia, then beating Yordenis Ugas, then beating Terrence Crawford, then taking on Canelo at 168 after Jermell Charlo attempted. Now it's Errol Spence's turn. That comes from the same camp. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Terrence is a threat. And don't think it's not the same for Canelo, because people need Canelo to win. You got channels talking about shutting that shit down. If Terrence Crawford, I've heard him. I said, dude, don't put one fight on your whole channel. Don't do that, bro. That's not a good idea. Kurt, you pumped up for the Franklin versus, yeah. I can't wait to see it too. Now, bitch in Blue Blood Sports is defending Crawford from his not so secret lover, Fanon. I think Fanon was, Fanon hates Crawford, but I think he knows, though. Fanon was a guy that had a big audience for Errol Spence. Fanon is hurt. Fanon is bitter. That channel, it's still, and I don't understand it, but he's the resistance. He's a guy that still thinks that Crawford was a cheat and Errol Spence was, and the crazy thing is you still have people that believe that. So more power to him. I ain't mad at it, but I know it's all bullshit because it's out of desperation, because Fanon's audience came from people that was from the PBC, the Fox, the Showtime, and the prior or former LDBC stuff. And they all followed Al Heyman. All of them. And then, they quietly started stepping off. Any concerns that Canelo is juicing? Well, I don't think so. For him to get caught juicing in a fight this big would be very, very, very disappointing. It would be embarrassing. Do you guys realize the embarrassment that Canelo would have if he tested positive? Shit for both fighters, really, because now we talking about all this snack shit that just popped out of nowhere. Why do you think about Canelo versus Charlo versus Spence? What about Bam versus Inouye? I think Bam wins. Not sure. I don't know much about Bam, to be fair. I don't really watch Bam. Bam Rodriguez, I don't really watch him. Fanon was the Errol Spence Jr. train, and TBC derailed that. Fanon channel should not be taken that serious. It's all delusion. Well, it's people that want to believe that. He has a cult. I look at Fanon's channel like a channel that is like, I look at it like a church, like a cult church. You know, those cult churches that, that are way off in some rural area that people still go to and they still believe that shit. Yeah, that's Fanon's following. But I mean, it is what it is. Showbiz finna lose 20K. Look, don't feel bad for Showbiz. I want people to understand, Showbiz the adult is not hurting for money. So when you see Showbiz lose $20,000, $20,000 doesn't mean much to somebody that probably makes $20,000 a month or more. Okay, so, and I'm not even in his pockets. I just know the numbers. Because on my highest numbers, and I haven't done numbers like Showbiz in a very long time, but I do know what type of money that's coming in. So $20,000, don't give me. So when you hear talk about that, yeah, it sucks to lose any type of money like that. You know, it's a sickening feeling. You feel that shit right here in your gut. And you know what I mean? And I've been counseled by showbiz by losing money. That's why I don't gamble no more. But he does. But also it comes with the territory. So when you have that type of money, he ain't gonna bet something. He's not gonna bet 50,000 or some shit like no. He's not gonna do nothing that crazy. But the whole thing is, he's not gonna bet something that's going to put him in like a degenerate status. He's gonna be okay. So when I hear about Show losing the money, I'll reach out to him. Damn, dude, sorry, but I don't feel as bad because he's a successful channel and it's growing. And then he has other affiliates like The Zone and the Black Two Sugars and his own show. So you don't know, and it's none of my business what he makes, but he's getting paid. So don't worry about showbiz. Showbiz is fine. Oops, he's fine. I thought you was showbiz. That's like calling Terrence Crawford Kendrick Lamar. No. No. I bought up the snack thing. I heard this channel say, but I'm not on that train. David Benavidez would be the first person to say Canelo has always been using steroids. This man said, I thought you was showbiz. Damn. You bet what you can afford to lose. Correct. And he can afford to lose 20,000. You know what I mean? But understand, if he's betting 20,000 and Canelo's the favorite, he's not going to win too much. So he's just pretty much, he's just putting up that type of money. But it's a hell of a thing to lose 20,000 because you think about 20 grand. What you could do with 20,000? You could buy a fucking car. You could buy a taxi or a fucking. You could buy a cheap property in Detroit, Michigan, for $20,000. Be real. Who you got? Pressure Hamilton. I got Crawford. I got Crawford winning. I got Crawford beating Canelo. But keep in mind, I always had Lara beating Canelo. I just understand that Lara is not, doesn't have a big enough following to have, Triple G actually did. That's why when Triple G had the draw, that's why it was a draw. If Triple G had the following Lara had, he would have never got a draw. It would have just been a nobody-like guy that, a very small following, very small influence, talented, like Oscar said about Lara. He's very slick. He's a very slick fighter. And rematch, I'm hearing rematch. There will be no rematch. He's lost, so he has to go behind the line and work himself back up. That's Oscar. That's Oscar for you. Not that I'm hurt, but he just one of them channels that has Mexican supporters and he gobbles them like a rooster. Well, people and channels, content creators, they, some people have the power. Some people have the power to have their own opinion. I know for a fact when, a lot of people came to this channel for AJ. It was a lot of AJ supporters here, a lot of AJ fans, and what I've noticed was as soon as he got beat, because I think, who said that? I think it was Scance Rant. Shout out to Scance Rant. He was like, Kurt, if Joshua would have knocked out Danny Dubois, if he would have knocked out Danny Dubois, you would have had over 100,000 subscribers. And I thought about it. And I'm thinking like, Seth, well, yeah, you know what? That's probably true. But am I glad of that? I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because I don't want people to come to this channel only for one fighter. You know what I mean? That's just like, no, like just like one fight doesn't define a fighter. Well, one fighter doesn't define a channel. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want people just coming here for AJ. I want people to know the knowledge that I have. And it's more than heavyweights as well. Yeah, I'm a heavyweight. I love heavyweights. And I know that's the niche. I know people come here for heavyweight knowledge. But also there's so much knowledge that I have to offer besides heavyweights. That's why I try to implement the idea in other channels with cruiserweight and light heavyweight, which I think is way underrated. Because you still have Better BF, you still have Bivol, you have David Benavidez, you have channels or weight classes like that that needs more exposure, you know. But all in all, like, I'm glad that that's not the case, because I don't want what happens when AJ retires. Well, damn, nobody'll come to the channel no more because of AJ. What the hell? Don't get me wrong. I mean, AJ is a sought after fighter that people want to know what's going on in his life. Not as much as it used to be, because again, it's shifting. The interest is shifting. You remember all those channels that used to talk about Floyd? Oh, Mayweather. Now they don't. It moved on to the next interest. Give me advice as an African moving to America. Location. Location is very important. And it depends on America. America's a very diverse place. I would not be here if this was Showbiz channel. I'm also glad Showbiz will be losing 20,000. Not that I'm hurt. Okay, I already got that one. Okay, let's see. He low-key had Miss Showbiz to bet on Crawford to KO Nello to make up for the loss. If he was smart, he would. I mean, why wouldn't you go for that opportunity if you had the money to put up? With $20,000, bro, I would invest in crypto. You know what I mean? Because I'm not that gambling dude. That's why I know I'm not that dude. You know what I mean? Because I know the feeling you get when you win, but I also know the feeling you get when you lose. That's a fucked up feeling. But all of it gives you the butterfly and all those things. You know what I mean? And some people, like gamblers, I think they live off the dopamine dropping. That hit you get from gambling and the anticipation of the possibilities of you possibly winning or losing. Lara is mostly a boxer. TBC is a brawler, counterpunching boxer. There is a difference. Yeah, there is a big difference between Crawford and Lara. It is. You are right. I can't believe AJ lost the break. I can't believe that shit either. AJ, I'm kind of low-key mad at that motherfucker, to be real with you. To be real. I'm mad at AJ, man. Because, see, now it's more like, because he's doing more in it. Because I know that he's seen the channel. Because, people seeing like, man, AJ likes your stuff, man. He likes what you say about him and stuff like that. But then, it's so fickle because, the hundreds of videos I've made about AJ over the last 6 or 7 years, they've been mostly, pro AJ, because, of course, people like AJ. But AJ does things that are likable too. And I like to give acknowledgement to anyone that gives any kind of positive note. It's, including Wilder and everyone else. But, it's not low key with me. I'm furious with AJ. I feel you. Stay in Africa, bro. Nah, man. He should have ran that shit back, though. To be fair, AJ should have ran that shit back. And I was pissed at Eddie for not wanting, I was pissed at Eddie Hearn for not wanting that rematch right away. And then he was the one that pretty much called that, you know what I mean? He pulled rank on AJ. He pulled rank on AJ. He was like, nah, bro. You should have fought Daniel Dubois right away. That was a fucking upset. You let Daniel Dubois beat you like that, and Daniel didn't even look good. If you looked at that performance, it looked like a sorry ass dude beating a sorrier ass dude. That's what it looked like to me. So yeah, AJ, yeah, I'm mad at AJ. I'm mad at AJ. AJ, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people were devastated. Man, they came to see AJ after freshly knocking out Francis Ngannou, avenging the sport of boxing of that shit show that Tyson Fury put on with Francis, and then he gets knocked out by Daniel fucking Dubois. And Usyk made that shit look so easy, didn't he? Didn't Usyk make that fight look so easy? Usyk made the Daniel Dubois fight rematch look like a walk in the park. That's why a lot of people don't believe that he's injured, because the fight was too easy for him. Slow jab, right hand, bow, left counter. Come on, man. Come on, bro. Yeah, I'm mad too. The only time I ever rooted for a triple dummy is when he beat the radioactive cheeseburger out of Miller. Yeah, that was something. I wanted Miller to win. Because, I mean, Daniel Dubois was a good lad, but I think you have to do more than be a good lad. And he's trainable kind of, but he's not really. You can tell, you can see right through that shit. You can see right through the PR work, because they still got to coach. Yeah, say thanks to the audience. Say thanks to the audience. Saul Nomas Alvarez. Hearn ruined the Wilder versus AJ $100 million fight by ducking and milking the titles too long. That's an opinion. Which I don't believe that shit, though. I think Wilder thought that he was bigger than what he was. I thought that, he thought that based on what he was offered, he thought that he was worth more. But that's what happens when you offer people shit that they don't deserve. They think they're worth more than what you offered them. That's what happened to Wilder. Wilder was stupid for that. He admitted it, though. If you do your research, Black Man Rising, if you do your research, honestly, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to ride any cock. Do your research. Please. So for anyone that wants knowledge as their reasoning behind their decisions, do your research. Because Wilder didn't accept the money. But don't listen to me. Just research. Research what you need to. They sent Wilder a contract before, right? Yeah, they sent him many contracts. He just didn't want them. He didn't want the contract, so he didn't want the fight he claimed that he wanted. So if you didn't want it, this is common sense, though, bro. If you didn't want the fight, or if you thought someone was scared, they wouldn't be sending you contracts. See, in any case, what you want to do, you want to take anything that's offered to you to show that you're the best. And they didn't happen. I like Wilder over AJ right now. Maybe. I don't know, because I mean they both look damaged. They're both in the mid-30s. Well, shit, Wilder will be 40 next month. So they're both not in the mid-30s. AJ ain't fought in over a year. This man got beat by Daniel Dubois. That man, yeah. So why not? I mean, why wouldn't that be a reasonable outcome? It's plausible. Mama Lou, that mighty mouth was full of burgers, pizza, and shit. No, it's not what they say. Wilder told Tyson Fury that AJ offered him more money. Listen to this. I just looked this up for you, just for you, and whoever may need to hear this, because I think there's still confusion of people not really. This is an AI overview. In November of 2020, way after the negotiations, Deontay Wilder publicly stated that he was offered more money to fight Anthony Joshua, but turned it down to face Fury again. Okay? So this was before Wilder lost. Yeah, slave wages was his words. The comment was made in a social media rant directed at Fury, and where Wilder also accused him of trying to bounce out of their contractual rematch. And I'm going to tell you what happened with that. Wilder thought that he had a dancing partner. Here was the ploy. The whole ploy was, let's get AJ out of the picture by freezing him out. You see what I mean? I'm the WBC champ, said Wilder. So he couldn't get that belt. So he can't be undisputed because they know where AJ was trying to go. He wanted to be undisputed heavyweight champion, which he never became. He was the unified, but he wasn't the undisputed because he needed the WBC. They were supposed to send Wilder that contract before he ever fought Fury. That is the point I'm saying. Hearn ruined it. No, what I'm saying is, you're getting two different time frames mixed up. They offered in 2018 12.5. Wilder called it slave wages. In fact, that was before Tyson Fury even came back into the picture. Then they offered him 15 million. He accepted it, agreed to terms, then reneged on those terms because he claimed that there was no rematch clause. I remember this shit very well. It's just sometimes I don't know why I have the energy to talk about it, but this is the facts. They tried to make the fight before he ever fought Fury. Yes, he did. They did, and it didn't work because Wilder turned it down. He turned down the 12.5. He turned down the 15 million. He turned down another contract. But all through this time in 2018, the whole 12-month time, Wilder was building his brand. See, what you don't understand is what Wilder was doing was actually smart, but it wasn't true. What Wilder was doing was they scared. They know I'll knock him out. I know they lying. They don't want to fight. You know, have you ever been lied to? He was saying these things, but what he was doing was he was building up his brand. You know, and who did he fight? He fought Luis Ortiz, which gave him legitimacy, right? Because Luis Ortiz at the time, the old Cuban that was kicking everybody's ass and avoided by a lot, right? He beat him. That gave him some sort of credibility because, you know, he got hurt in the 7th round and all that stuff, right? Which, whatever. Then he called out Joshua. Then he was, you know, then they offered Wilder a fight with Dillian White, which he didn't take. He called Dillian White a peasant. So if you want to talk about compliancy, he was not compliant. Then the next year in 2019, they offered him 100 million. I know you heard about that. To be fair, Hearn was lowballing him in those numbers. See, here's the thing. Lowball to a person that is not accustomed to that type of money is bullshit. And see, that's that's what was being said. That was the argument. Oh, man, he's lowballing them. Well, lowballing them doesn't mean you're ducking them. You know, a lot of people may try to justify that as being, man, if you lowball somebody, you know that you look. No, he's not. Because see, what happens is, and what's supposed to been was while Wilder's supposed to took the money that was offered. He wasn't worth 12 million. Did he get 12 million in his last fight? No. Did he get 12 million the fight before that? No. Did he get 12 million the fight before that? No. So he didn't even get 12 million for Zhang, 12 million for Parker, 12 million for Herndon. You know what I'm saying? Like, did he get that from those fights? He might have got that for, maybe he got that for the third trilogy fight. Mama Lou, glad I could keep things. He called 12.5 million slave wages. Bro, you know how many asses I would whoop in this parking lot for $12 million? About 30. $12 million is fair. $12 million was worth way more than Wilder was worth in 2018. Wilder made $1 million, or was it 900,000 against Luis Ortiz. In a unification, that's what it was about. They offered him 12.5 billion. You know, and I don't even think that was Wilder, though, to be fair. I think what they were doing with Wilder, they were putting their hand up his ass and talking through him like a puppet, because he wasn't speaking for himself, bro. That was Shelly Finkel, that was Al Heyman. I know it was Al Heyman. Al Heyman did not want AJ versus Wilder, or should I say he didn't want Wilder versus AJ. How much was AJ offered in those contracts? The problem is, you sound like Shelly Finkel. Well, how much was he offered? It's none of your fucking business. See, if you know Wilder ain't worth 12.5, what would you worry about what the other fighter's worth anyway? See, now we're talking a bunch of shit that like, oh, well, what is AJ getting? A lot more than Wilder. A lot more than Wilder was worth, because AJ was the unified champion. AJ was the golden Olympian. AJ was that guy that was sought after. AJ was that 20 million pound fighter. Wilder didn't make that money. He never made that money. He was new to that shit. He was letting people talk for him. He was letting people talk for him. And I saw it. I was like, wait a minute. You've never made that type of money. You need AJ to make the money that was offered to you, and you didn't want it. Make that make sense. If you knew you're not worth 12.5 million, and then the guy that you know that's way worth 12.5 offers you 12.5, and you turn around and say, oh man, that ain't no money. Non-transparency is a sign of lowballing. It don't fucking matter. He wouldn't lowballed. Wilder I don't even think he deserved 12.5. And how do you base that? How do you base a person's worth? How do you base it on? What do you base it on? It has to be a comparison of what you already made. It has to. What your potential is. No. What have you made? And this ain't the Wilder. Wilder beat Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz was fucked over because he was a lesser sought after opponent than Deontay Wilder. They needed Ortiz to make Wilder's resume because it was so shit. He could have fought Povetkin. He didn't want to. AJ fought him because he knew the value in it when he was also the mandatory. Wilder, my thing about Wilder was, Wilder had his own following as far as the Americans went, but he hadn't fought anyone. That was the problem. Man, I get my uncle. Yeah, I mean, he did a video on Wilder when he got beat by Tyson Fury. That shit was hilarious. He had a lot to say about Wilder. Do you still want AJ Miller? Well, yeah, I want them both. I mean, I want somebody to fight somebody. Somebody got to fight, bro. And I don't understand why Turki Al-Sheikh wouldn't want to put those fights together. No one cares about soccer. Yeah, Super Clan 37. You have to be from America talking that shit. America acts like some people from America that probably have never been anywhere else say some shit like that. Yeah. Nobody cares about soccer. Yeah, you crazy as shit. Soccer's the most fucking soccer is the biggest sport in the world. Football. That's facts, bro. Just like it's facts that Wilder was not worth fucking $12 million. That was a courtesy. They were actually paying for that fucking belt. You know what I mean? Sometimes, people buy belts. They don't buy the fighters. They buy the belts. And the fighters get the belts. They pay for the belts. If the fighter has the belts, therefore they fight the fighter. But no, Wilder wasn't worth 12.5. That's why I was so furious with him. That's why he said what he said. They offered me more money. When did they offer him more money? So, there you go. We need AJ Dubois rematch. Kurt, I'm from Australia. Tim, Sheeran. Counterpunch to you, brother. Australia in the building. I don't give a shit about soccer. Sign me up for those slave wages. Sign my ass up too. Why is Showbiz talking shit to Crawford? Is he paid? Showbiz is, as far as Showbiz is doing his thing over there. He's doing his thing over there. I need Joyce Dubois. I don't need that. We've already had Joyce Dubois. Hadn't we? We seen Joyce Dubois when Joyce was Joyce, when he was the juggernaut. You know what? I don't want to see that anymore because we already know. For those who don't, we got a 40-year-old Joe Joyce. We got a 40-year-old Joe Joyce that is no longer the juggernaut. He's just Joe Joyce. Drop the fucking J. It ain't Triple J. It's just JJ. J for Joe. J for Joyce. Joe Joyce. Not Joe the Juggernaut Joyce. Okay? Skrilla 50, even if it was half them slave wages, you couldn't complain. That's what I'm saying. Me and Skrilla could split. Fuck that. 600. No, what is it? Sorry, it threw me off. Phone call trying to get in. 6.2 and a half? Right? 12.5, yeah. 6,250,000. Yeah, give me that. Kurt, do you think 168 reduces Crawford's volume? I don't know. We don't know. I don't know if it does or not. I mean, it would be stupid for me to say, I don't think it does. Well, what do we have to gauge on? Sparring. So only they know how he did in sparring. Only they know if he punched out. And I would hope Bomac would at least make a survey of what was the norm for Crawford at 147 versus what he does now, Big Baby Miller versus Moses, or Moses and Andy. I think Andy needs to come back. I think Andy needs an opportunity, and I really mean that. I just hope that Andy and Miller don't suffer from the same silly shit. What do I mean by that? Miller has found fucking ways not to fight people. See, Derek Chisora, he should have fought Derek Chisora, but he was connected with Dimitri Salita still. And because of that, he didn't get the opportunity or whatever, because supposedly Dimitri Salita was trying to make a backhand deal. I think he's on some crooked shit, because a lot of people have said that. Others have said that about Dimitri Salita. So, no, he doesn't have a great reputation. That's unfortunate. He pulls out the Fabio Wardley fight. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, dude. Like, a lot of unfortunate things happen to Miller, which I don't think that should have happened. Is anyone actually betting on Bud? I don't know. Crawford better not let me down. $12 million is a lot. I bet Wilder would have taken it now, looking back. Yeah, he would have. He would have took the $100 million that was offered to him, because I think that was the plateau. He would have took that $100 million, and I know he knows that. And that might have been the money that he was talking to in regard of because he only made did he make $4 million? He's supposed to make $4 million against Tyson Fury. So if you compare Tyson Fury which was a guy that was just coming back to the sport in 2018. If you talk about that and you talk about the idea of AJ and you know what I mean, and that's 3 times the amount of money. That's over 3 times the amount of money that was offered to Wilder to fight AJ. And that still wasn't enough. And motherfuckers will still say, oh, that's a low blow. That's low balling. Bro, I don't want to hear that shit. That man had an opportunity to fight. He was offered high payday career money. And he didn't take it. They called it a low blow. And what angered me about it, you still got motherfuckers like Black Man Rising over here talking about it was a low blow. And that's why motherfuckers like you, that's why we didn't get the fight. People justified it. Oh, it was a low blow, and you know how if you're low blowing, you don't want the fight. No, if somebody you feel is low balling you, I think that's what you should do. See, they took the 15 million. So if 12.5 was slave wages, then 2.5 more wasn't. Think about that. See, they took 15 million, but 12.5 was an insult. Make that make sense. Well, why would 12.5 be an insult if you agreed to 15 million? See, they wanted a guarantee of a second fight. And my problem was, I'm like, well, if normally, look, Mayweather didn't agree to fight Pacquiao in a rematch, but the fight happened, right? Because enough money was offered to both guys and they took it. Now, to be fair, Pacquiao didn't take 40 million, which a lot of people thought he should have, but he ended up later on getting 150 million because their brands didn't change. Wilder didn't do enough. Wilder's not a fucking Manny Pacquiao. He hasn't warranted or earned any right to be a Manny Pacquiao. He will never be a fucking Manny Pacquiao. You see what I mean? But Wilder agreeing to that 15 million, and his team didn't look and see that they didn't have a rematch clause. So, nah, man, it's just no. They say the most Wilder made in his third fight was 20 million. That was in 2001. And he went to court, and I don't know. So hopefully he has some of that shit, man. Wilder just learned how to multiply and divide 2 years ago. He was homeschooled by Telly Givens. Fucking Telly Givens. Let me say something positive about her. She's a very attractive woman. Telly Givens. Telly Swift she's a very attractive woman, and I think that's probably what attracted Wilder to her. Or to him, sorry. But I do think what happens, though, I can tell. I remember when you guys remember when Wilder went to Rome and met the Pope? You guys remember that? Julian Falcon, what's up, my brother? Kind of punch to you. We're talking about Wilder right now, but it was about the preview of Terrence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez. But here's the deal. I forget what they were talking about, but Wilder was saying something, and he was saying it wrong. And she was like, no, baby, this is how you say it. And Wilder actually, you could tell the intellect differences between the two. Because the way she said it, it was almost like, and in the way he responded. And, like, my pet peeves, my mother, guys, fun fact about me. My mother was an English teacher. So you don't really hear me talk a lot of Ebonics. You see what I mean? And because I wasn't raised that way. I wasn't raised to talk wrong. Okay, because my mom made it her business because she had 2 boys. I have other brothers and sisters, but it was just me and my brother from my mother. and she made it her business. God damn it. She made it her business, okay, to teach us proper English. And one of my pet peeves growing up with my mother is hearing people say shit wrong, like certain things. Like certain things don't bother me, but when people say, instead of saying library, fucking out, it's library. You heard that shit before? It's like some, I don't know if it's ebonics, but it's currently used in the African American community, and you hear motherfuckers say that library. I'm going to the library. I'm thinking, and every time I hear that, I'm like, dude, I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I don't know what the fuck a library is. Where lies are buried, right? But no. Yeah, and it's crazy when I hear it. And this is the bad thing. The bad thing is you hear people that say that have fucking degrees. Wait a minute, bitch, you went to college and you still saying library? Oh, that grinds my gears. And, I heard people say, oh, I'm going to the library. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is, dude. What do you mean? It means what it is. I don't know what the fuck a library is. I never heard of that. I heard of a fucking library. Oh, yeah. And that's where books are. That's where you're supposed to go learn, and you're fucking that up. That's like misspelling school. But no, I mean, that really that pisses me off. And Wilder, to say all that to say this, Wilder said something like that. Yeah, well, I say it like this. And you could tell the way she looked at him. She was like, this fucking idiot. This motherfucker's dumb. And it just dawned on me, and I'm thinking to myself, like, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, this ain't a match made in heaven. This may be some other shit. I'm English, American accents puzzles me. Oh, now that's a hard question to answer. I'm going for Wilder. Quadruple D got the IQ of a flip-flop. It's school. Ambulance. Yeah, ambulance. That doesn't bother me as much because, I mean, I don't know why. But library does, because I think it consists of learning and places you go. And every school has a library. You know what I'm saying? So that's where you learned and you looked up books and you learn how to pronunciate. You know what I mean? I got the mindset of Chris Eubanks Sr. with that. That's deplorable. You know? So, yeah, that. But I saw things like that, and it was almost like when someone is smarter in the relationship, more than likely the smarter person is the one to leave the relationship. You know? So, like you heard, like equally yoked or equally balanced or equally compatible in certain relationships, and I don't think that was one. I think she was smarter. I think she was, and Wilder didn't really know any better, and the thing is, I think, smarter people know that. And I'm not the smartest person in the world, but at the same time, though, I seen definitely a difference in intellect between the two. Something an intelligent person would say versus someone that is less intelligent. I'm not trying to be rude, but I am trying to get people to understand, like, hey, well, listen, a lot of times these particular obvious things that happen between people, you can tell. Wait a minute, was somebody? Yeah, I remember this. I had this chick, fine little chick that I used to date, right? And this motherfucker was she had a degree and everything. I went to school. She went to Grambling University in northern Louisiana up there. And man, we really had fun. And I went out on because I went out on a date with her one time. I can't remember where we went, but I was trying to tell her the difference between because I was trying to explain to her, and this just shows you people's intellect and and they don't, or people's ignorance, what people don't know. She says, well, what's the difference between someone from people? I seen a person that he looked black, but he wasn't black because he talked with another language. And I was like, no, I just said, well, because he's probably from another country that speaks the language. You know, his nationality and his race could be different from his nationality. And I said, because I said, well, and I tried to simplify it for her, and she was like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, they just ain't black people. If to me, if they don't talk American, they ain't, and I'm thinking, oh my God, she sounds like a black fucking hillbilly. But then I was like, okay, well, I dumbed it down. I was like, well, like, we're from Louisiana, so we're Louisianans. No, but we still American. I said, okay, well, if you were from Michigan, you know, no, I didn't say that. I said, if you were from, no, I said, if you were from Michigan, where would you be? This motherfucker said, I don't know where that's at. I said, yeah, this date's over. You're stupid. You know what I mean? I'm like, you don't know. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, yeah, you're stupid. But that's a person that doesn't know yeah, that I wouldn't swing it with that. I would have loved to have been on a fly on the wall when Wilder told Telly Givens that he rejected 100 million. Yeah, I do think of that. I do think what she had to say about that, I would like to know. To this day, I would like to know what um what she thought of that, because that was crazy. That was bad, because nobody turns down $100 million. Shit, man, Pacquiao got 180 million. Well, I know that's a lot more, but $100 million, dude. Come on, man. That might be the dumbest shit I ever heard. Are people from the Congo who don't speak like her, not black? Yeah, she was stupid, but I mean, she just didn't know. I mean, a lot of people are like that, And I don't want to throw that all on Louisiana, but you got some dumb fucking people in the South. The stupid. A lot of people are stupid, bro. You got a lot of smart people, but you got a lot of dumb people too. They're just not educated. It's lack of education, or the being stupid is the idea. Some people think the less you know, the cooler you are. Yeah, that's all that is. It's just, you know, it's crazy because I look at people like, oh, well, people don't understand. Well, there's other people in other countries. I'm like, well, but I was trying to tell her, like, well, like Detroit, well, I don't know where that's at. Hey, man, have you played Undisputed? I have played Undisputed. I like me personally, maybe because I've been playing that shit for 10 years. I like Fight Night better. Fight Night Champions is better to me. I mean, it's pretty good, but I like that better, to be fair. This is why us Europeans are so great, smart, and perfect. Yeah, right. Um, yeah, you got a lot of. I said people from the South. I didn't say black people. Because a lot of them, I don't know what the hell that's going to be. I don't know about that. Skrilla, that's when she realized Wilder was kind of daft. Yeah, yeah. But then, he started losing, so it was no need to carry on. And a person like that just went to the next person, and that's exactly what she did. Now she's with a football player. And if there's any truth to Jarrell Miller, well, she'd been with boxers. She just wanted to be with somebody that was a champ. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, there you go. Fight Night way better? Yeah, I think so. I've played Undisputed, and it's supposed to be on 5. I'm like, bro, no. PlayStation 5 supposed to, you supposed to had, nah. I wasn't impressed. So, but no, Wilder, man, I felt bad for him though, because she stuck around, played the long game, had a child, and what I would say about that, if you knew that, because see, the reasoning behind that was what she said he did to her, I think was bullshit. I do think that was bullshit. And that had nothing to do with how intelligent the man was or whatever. Obviously, she put up with the shit and they had fun. And I think that's what it's about. You know what I mean? You don't I think, you don't want to judge people for what they don't know. It's what they are willing to learn dictates what type of person they are. You know what I mean? And that, and that's what turned me off about the chick. Really, really pretty girl. But the chick, she was stupid and she chose to be. She was stupid. Not necessarily dumb. She was ignorant. But if you think to yourself, like, I don't want to learn shit, well, what the fuck you asked me for? And it's a turnoff, to a certain degree. But I don't like a person that's too smart, because then you can't tell them shit, even with things they don't know, because then that's when arrogance comes in and pride. Oh, I know everything anyway, so nobody can't tell me shit about this. Well, I don't know about that. That's why I'm telling you, bitch. So anyway, back to what I was saying. What do you have planned today? Well, I'm gonna work. I have 7 videos that I haven't posted yet, and I'm trying to, I don't know if it's a good idea to start posting some. I may post a couple because they're off topic based on the week at hand. This is fight week. This is Canelo versus Crawford. So, I don't want to put too much content that has, very little to do with the concentrated topic, Crawford versus Canelo. If Wilder was all that, he would have taken the test versus AJ. Usyk did with Fury. Yeah. But the thing is, Wilder wasn't trying to do that, and Wilder didn't have his own mind. I think, and I will always say, Wilder's team betrayed him, and they did. Yeah, they betrayed him, but they also knew he was limited in everything. So, except probably power. If someone files a restraining order on you, they should also leave you alone. Well, she left him alone after he got beat. Zilly Zhang knocked him out. 2 days later, she filed a restraining order. But then, like you said, it makes sense. I know what you're saying. Why didn't she do that shit before? So if you, here's my thing. Even if you were planning to do that, you should have already done it. That's a red flag, the biggest red flag, and that is when she decided to do that. Zhang turned Wilder into a gold medal ice skater. Yeah, and I felt bad for him. I'm like, man, you don't kick nobody when they're down. You don't kick nobody when they're down. She decided, let me go up there and file a restraining order. People, I don't believe Telly Swift would have filed that fucking restraining order against Wilder if Wilder would have beat Zhang. That wouldn't have happened. And for her just saying, well, I was afraid on what type of mood he'll be in, so I filed it just in case because I didn't want him beating me up. No, motherfucker. No. That I don't buy that shit. I do not buy it. Do you think Jai Pataya could bash through the heavyweight division one day? Jai Pataya, I think, needs to do that now. I mean, I know he's waiting around. I understand it. I know what he wants. I know what his goals are. But I think that he's getting to run around at cruiserweight. Zerto won't fight him. I don't think Zerto will fight him because the style is all wrong for Zerto. And I think Zerto knows that. And I think because of that, Zerto is bullshitting him. Zerto is bullshitting Jai Apataya. He won't get. He may get the what's the Badu Jack fight. He may get that one day. You know what I mean? That may be the next fight. But the Zerto fight, no. I don't think he's going to get the Zerto fight. And if he doesn't get the Zerto fight, comes to find out he waits 2 or 3 years at cruiserweight to wait for a fight that don't even happen, then he's wasted his motherfucking time. You see what I mean? He's wasted his time where he could been fighting guys like shit. I don't know, maybe Chisora, because that was a fight that was talked about. Philip Hergovic, Otto Weiland. That's a good fight for him because he's not a big fighter. That's a good primer fight for him. A lot of fights, bro. Jared Anderson is a good fight for him. A lot of those guys, man. It's better than waiting around at cruiserweight. And cruiserweight is not really, honestly, the exposure that he needs. Bro, imagine a Jogba, Bakoli, Hergovic versus Jai. Complete mixed mismatches. I don't know. I don't know about that. I think people are looking at Mark McCauley now as just this fat, overweight guy, which he is. I just think we know what's wrong with him. I think he's always had the Andy Ruiz syndrome. He's always been a guy that has, definitely ate too much. But I think he's still a good fighter. Hergovic, I think Hergovic would be a good fight for him. Those are bigger dudes, though. All those guys are 6'5", 6'6", right? Apatai can run through the division after Caballo retires. Yeah, because Caballo, I wouldn't want him fighting Caballo. But then those would be fights that probably would be made, and you're like, fuck. I didn't want to see Usyk fight Joshua. I wanted Usyk to fight Fury. I wanted Usyk to fight Wilder. That would have been a good fight. Andy, where's my Snickers Ruiz? Wilder has kids with multiple women. He deserves no sympathy. He went to Telly while already with someone. He has responsibility. Well, I mean, he's just a dirtbag. That's what men do, bro. A lot of men do that shit. I mean, did he deserve to get shitted on? She had a choice in the matter. It wasn't like he was lying to her. No, she knew about that shit too, so she's just as much as fault going in there with a married man than anybody else. Anytime you decide to get in a relationship with somebody that's married, that's on you. That was your decision. Because people are full of shit, people are liars. And most people that are married are liars. Anybody that breaks their marriage vows to lie down with somebody else, they can't be trusted by default. That's just the facts. Now, you could say an exception to the rule where if you do have a person that just falls out of love with someone they're married to, or they were separated for a while, that person doesn't stay with them. You know what I mean? Things like that. Those things happen, and they meet someone and then they divorce and then they get with that other person. Well, if they're with that other person, okay, that may be reasonable. But more than likely what happens is when you have man or woman, it doesn't matter. You have these people, they get in these marriages and they don't want to be in them anymore. And they start cheating. But then they still want the benefits of being married. And that's wrong. Wilder was, what is that? Shagging his brother's lady too. Well, he thought he was the king. He thought he was some kind of, he thought he was a king. He did king shit. Diabolical king shit. That's what Wilder did. Wilder was like, shit, I want his girl too. You look good to me. Let me show you what I got. Yeah. Must have been a lot of women who liked lanky legs. I mean, that, but I think they've always been in competition. He wanted to fight his brother. Let me go down to cruiserweight. Why would you want to go to a weight class that your brother's in? And his brother we ain't seen him fighting forever. When was the last time you seen a Marcelos Wallace fight? Flamingo leg lovers. No, seriously though, man. I mean, Wilder seen Telly Swift. She was fine. And he was like, hell, I want her for mine. Bars. But no, man, the press conference was good. Back to Canelo versus Crawford, to full circle. Um, I will be live for the weigh-in today, so stay tuned for that. That's the last of that. I'm glad to reach you guys. I mean, my lives, besides fight night, are not really all that big, so I'm glad that I can interact with you guys. That's the benefit of that. I'm Billy gonna steal the show. That's a hard hitting dude. I look forward to him too. So there's a lot of good fights on this card too. So it's not bad. It's not overwhelming with a lot of fights either. Like those DAZN cards. Sometimes you got 6, 7 fights. You're like, Jesus Christ, bro. That's a lot. So I look forward to the fight, man. Crawford versus Canelo. We'll see who's better. We'll see what Crawford can do at 168. We'll see what Canelo has left. We'll see what they can do with each other. And I enjoy the live pressure. I mean, it was respectful. It wasn't any pushing and shoving like the last one. So we'll see what happens in the weigh-in though, because I think that's where the shit hits the fan. So expect some pushing and shoving tomorrow, or should I say today, later on today. But no, I'm gonna get some sleep. Because I've already done enough videos. I may do some more videos. I may go to the gym here in a little bit. But until then, guys, I will see you on the next live. The weigh-in, Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Crawford, where they weigh in at, who looks bigger, who looks more fit, who looks more prepared, who won the weigh-in. So I look forward to that. Until then, guys, have a great night. God bless. And everyone has been counterpunched. Peace.